Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third podcast of CIPS MENA Procurement Master Talk series. I'm your host, Lalit Dhamija, with 40 years of experience in procurement and supply. I'm ex-procedure and process assurance manager in the procurement department of ADNOC Onshore. After my corporate career spanning 37 years, I am now global procurement and supply chain trainer and coach. I've been working as a CIPS volunteer in the UAE since 2009. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Sara Omar. We will talk all about e-procurement business and the impact of digitization and evolving technologies on procurement. We will summarize the key learning points at end of the podcast. CIPS MENA Procurement Master Talk series covers in-depth interviews with procurement and supply chain management professionals from various diverse industries. The stories about high and lows in the lives of procurement masters provide thought-provoking insights to face the market challenges in procurement professionals' pursuit to become strategic partners of their organizations. Our guest for today, as already mentioned, is Sara Omar. Sara is a senior procurement chain champion with an outstanding record of delivering complex e-procurement solutions for public and private sector clients, and in financial services, education, and property development throughout the Middle East and North Africa. Sara currently leads the Evalua e-procurement business in the Middle East region and is a proud current alumni of the Masters of Law in Public Procurement and Policy program in Nottingham University. She has been and continues to be leading in the role of consulting for regional public sector organizations in all matters relating to the digital procurement transformation and governance. Sara is the first African Arab female member in the Board of Trustees of the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply. And she is also the first female fellow of the Institute among Arab women in MENA region with 20 years plus experience of full-time in procurement and dealing with supply relationship management, procurement technology, procurement consulting, and new technology market expansion. Welcome to the talk show, Sara.
Thank you, Lalit. Thank you very much.
The first question to you is the one which normally we ask the procurement professionals, which is, how did you get into the procurement and supply chain discipline?
Thank you, Lalit, for the question. And I'm really honored to join you this morning for this podcast series with yourself and with CIPS. Yourself and I, we go way back in our colleagueship and our friendship through the CIPS network and our volunteer work. And I really appreciate all the work that you are doing to support the CIPS members through the years with your experience, your time, and your mentorship and advice. Really appreciate it, and I'm honored to be here with you this morning. How I joined the profession of procurement and supply, it might be the same story for many of us who've started their journey in procurement and supply in the last 2 to 3 decades, because I come from the era where procurement and supply was not a very well-known study discipline, so we didn't have it as part of our bachelor degree or university programs. I've graduated in 1998 as a chemical engineer, actually. So I started my very early career at the young years as an engineer with oil and gas. And at that time, I was placed with the more of the sales and business development department of the company, because they were looking for young, fresh grad engineers to support engineering sales for lubricants and so on. I stayed in that role for about 18 months. And within the time that I was in my role, I was a bit physically sitting closer to the supply department in that company. It was ExxonMobil, actually. Right. So I was really interested about the team, who were actually managing the supply, demand, the shipping, the negotiation. And I was just a bit perplexed, I felt that they were doing something really important, and I wanted to be part of it. I was just curious, but I didn't know it. So it ignited a little bit at that early 2000, my interest about what is supply and what is procurement. Then there was a job opening in another organization, and it was part of the United Nations, UNICEF. Right. They were looking for supply assistance. I applied while I didn't have any experience in supply chain management. I wrote a very compelling letter at that time. I remember expressing my passion to learn and to start the journey in supply chain. Wow. And I believe the hiring manager at that time, I remember him fondly. He was the one who initiated my career into supply and procurement. Probably read, in between the lines that I'm really keen to start in this profession. And as I told you, we were not, procurement and supply 20 years ago wasn't much of a recognized, profession or a career path. So, so it was, a lot of it was definitely, back end and back office support. So he took me on board among 60 or so applicants who had experience, but he said, I felt that you had the passion and the ability to learn. And he wanted also someone with a bit of an engineering background, because we were buying a lot of building material, furniture, water pumps, and he wanted someone who could, when you write your requirements, the specification, the detail, the measurements, you want someone with a bit of an engineering mentality once the RFQs are out in the market to really scrutinize the specification. So I started from there, and there was no way back since I joined.
That's wonderful. And I've seen you progress through the ranks over the years, and I cherish our friendship. We started, I think, in 2009-10 in this knowledge village in Dubai, when even CIPS did not have a proper office, and there were only a handful of professionals. We were trying to do something. And I know you were one of the few who started with the CIPS that time, and we have seen it grow from strength to strength. And you, of course, had a leading role in the CIPS Congress, and of course, you are a trustee now. And really, we are honored, and you are contributing to procurement body of knowledge throughout.
Thank you very much.
Sara, if given a choice, would you follow the same path again?
Yes, as I explained, it was a bit of intentional, so I would follow the path, but probably if I was given the chance and the knowledge, probably I would follow it earlier on by the proper education and the proper, degrees, earlier on. Okay, I cherish my years in engineering and my choice of engineering studies. But if someone would know where they would end and what would their career and life take them through, I would have made a better decision on my choice for education prior to starting my career. I would definitely go start in procurement, and I would always carry that flag. I believe passionately in the profession. I believe that it's a profession and a function that is very integral. It's core It's where you will always see results in what you're doing. You'll always have tangible output,
Yeah.
and as hard as you give, as much as you get out of it. And that's what I like. I always like to be part of where I can really, see tangible results and feel with my hands in the output of what I do. And procurement gives me that satisfaction.
Absolutely, Sara. I agree with you. I'm a mechanical engineer myself, and I started with engineering and major projects, facilities management and construction and engineering. Quite a lot of years, many things to learn, many things to contribute. But later, destiny brought me to procurement and supply because I was in quality assurance and control and third-party inspection. And that particular section moved to supply chain and procurement. And of course, it has opened new doors, and there's a lot of potential to contribute. And like you have got roots throughout the organization. You can contribute technically in specifications, in market intelligence, in rapport building, in stakeholders management, in strategic planning, in performance management. You say it, and all the potential is there within procurement and supply. And a wonderful profession to be, especially in the current circumstances when I'm seeing the TV or reading the articles in the press, be it media personalities, be it politicians, be it finance professionals or a business program. Everybody is talking about supply chain, and I feel so much amused when I hear that.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. It is, as I said, it's a core function. It touches every aspect of all operations within all types of organizations, be it profit-oriented, be it public sector, be it NGOs, be it service or manufacturing industries, and that's what makes it unique, and that's what makes it powerful, and that what makes it also sustainable as a career path for professionals.
This is transferable across the industries. That is the beauty of it. So it is relevant to every sector in any country, go in any industry, there's procurement and supply chain. So it gives you a lot of flexibility and potential. Sara, coming to the next question, interesting one for us. What 3 words do you think your colleagues and peers would use to describe you?
That's an interesting question, Lalit. I would hope that, my colleagues would see that in me, because, you would aspire always to, to support and help and be out there for your colleagues, for your teams, for your mentees, and so on. So I really hope that they see this in me. I would believe they would see me as a person with empathy and a humble leader, and as well someone who's decisive. I cherish and I value very much these attributes in myself as a professional, as a leader in my domain, and I hope that my colleagues across all sectors, either my colleagues in my professional job or my colleagues in my volunteer activities with CIPS, in the board, CIPS itself, and so people like yourselves, would see me as someone who has empathy, who really cares about others, about young professionals, about people who are in your similar skill set, similar position. Whenever there is a downturn in life, they feel that I'm someone with empathy that they can turn to, and that I'm a humble leader and I'm someone who reached, as you said, I've gone up the ranks. I've always been, thank God, I've always been progressing forward, but I never forget my starts. I never forget the times that I had to struggle to get there, and I never let it to, as you say, I don't let it get to my head. So I'm always a humble leader, and I will always remain like that. And I always see myself as someone who's decisive. Decision making for me very important. In all aspects of life, in profession, you always have to make decisions to move forward. If things kept hanging across time and borders, no one would get anything to be done. And one of the very good qualities I see in myself, that I'm a decisive person and I communicate very clearly on my decisions and my thought process of why we need to do this or that. So I really appreciate, I hope that my colleagues and my teams and mentees always feel that or more when they deal with me.
Absolutely, Sara, I agree with you. You are humble, you are approachable, you got empathy. And of course, we are seeing in this market now during this pandemic, professionals have to be decisive. They have to
Yes.
take the decision in uncertain times, uncertain circumstances you don't know. You can really postpone many things because you don't have facts, data, there are no trends available, no history available. But then you have to take a decision somewhere for the sake of the organization, for the sake of the employees. So that is a factor which really is in great demand, especially in the current circumstances. Sarah,
Exactly. Yes.
like to know, do you want to share any hobbies or any aspects of your personality with us?
That's a little bit of a tricky question, actually, Lalit.
Uh-huh.
I grew up at an age and a time and probably also a background, where we didn't sustain hobbies as such. You would
Mm-hmm.
hope to develop a hobby, but then you move from one to another. And I started sometime early in my career to also start a family, and I
Uh-huh.
had younger children.
Right.
So at some point of time, I couldn't really, hold on to a specific hobby or an activity, because it's either, I'm bringing up my family and my children,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm actually involved also in my career journey and my career path and moving to the UAE. But I've always had an admiration to the Olympic sports, and I always had an admiration to the aerial sports like the gymnastics and so on,
Mm-hmm.
because I could see, the discipline, the
Mm-hmm.
precision,
Yeah.
the strengths. These, young sportsmen and sportswomen,
Yes.
flying through the air, and it's always mesmerized me. And if time has gone back, I would have really started that really young in my lifetime so that I can develop it. But what I've done is in the last 1 or 2 years, because now
Uh-huh.
the children has grown up, I have more space, more
Uh-huh.
time for myself. So I discovered the small niche activity that I can relate a little bit to gymnastics. So I'm
Uh-huh.
now very passionately engaged in part of a yoga called swing yoga and aerial yoga. So it
Okay.
is a yoga that is on swings and up in
Uh-huh.
the air to some extent. So it's a little bit of a mimic to
Wonderful.
gymnastics, but it's giving me some sort of pride that I can, at this stage of my age, to start
Mm-hmm.
learn a new sports or a new activity from
Yeah.
scratch, and
Yeah.
start to develop strengths and feel light and I can do it. So
Mm-hmm.
so I'm starting to develop a little bit of my interest in gymnastics. I've transferred it to aerial yoga. I always recommend people who are at young age, and that's what I talk to my
Uh-huh.
children about, is that they always have to start from early on to develop passions about activities, either hobbies, interests,
Mm-hmm.
and take it through time, because at some point of your age, you always need to have, some activities to engage you.
Absolutely.
It's more of relaxing, more of self satisfaction as well.
Very well said. And you really pointed out correctly. During our time, it was more of a academic thing, and day to day, you have to cope up with that particular day. Uh, most of us will go from one hobby to another hobby, but not persist. And the other thing you
Mm,
told, when you see the athletes and you see the passion, I myself am drawn by the passion of the athletes, how much
mm,
discipline they have, how much
mm.
they put into 100% they put into that. And many times I
Yes.
drew inspiration from them, like to
Mm.
do a quality work, to do it to perfection as far as possible. Absolutely,
And
I share
I never
with
feel
you
let
that
down,
particular.
and they never feel let down, because it's a very
Yes.
difficult journey. It's very
Yes,
painful. It's very difficult. It's very
absolutely.
challenging. Nobody knows the details of how hard work they
Yeah,
had to invest to get to
yes,
that level. And people really has to appreciate that.
yes.
Mm.
Sarah, coming to these core questions now, what procurement can do to have a maximum impact on any organization?
Um, as we've said earlier, yourself and myself, Lali, that
Mm-hmm,
procurement touches many aspects of the organization and in the business, and in many levels, it touches that.
mm-hmm,
But I always see procurement is the window of the organization to the outer world. So
mm-hmm.
if there is a connection between the market, the global market,
Yeah,
and an organization, it is procurement.
yeah.
So when we look at that prime role that procurement holds within any organization, then we need to see how procurement is delivering that. How is it managing? It's
Mm-hmm,
more of that supplier relationship, supplier development,
mm-hmm.
market development, market discovery,
Right.
understanding of your supplier challenges,
Mm-hmm.
having supplier relationship strategic
Yeah.
management plans in place. I think that is where the core of what procurement can do to support any organization. And
Mm-hmm.
that is the window, and that is where the collaboration between any organization and the market happens at that point, and the gateway is through procurement. So we as procurement professionals, we always need to think ourselves as an extension to the market
Mm-hmm.
through to our organization, an extension to our supplier
Mm-hmm.
network, our supplier base, and so on and so forth to our organization. We have to extend that collaborative hand. We have to have that understanding. We have
Mm-hmm.
to have thorough understanding of what we are dealing with in terms of suppliers and supplier risk management as well. It's no longer the case for that adversarial arm length
Mm-hmm.
relationship
Yeah.
supplier. That doesn't work anymore. And we as procurement professionals have to develop the skills, the knowledge, the know-how. We have to read, we have to learn, we understand which categories we're working on, which suppliers we're dealing with, and what are the market dynamics, and we have to lead our organization through that.
Yeah.
And this is the main core, activity that procurement, should lead on, because we are the gateway to the supplier market.
I agree with you, Sarah. We have got a lot of potential in procurement to contribute to the organizations, be stakeholders management within the organization,
Mm.
or with the suppliers, supplier relationship management. Now we have seen people who really implemented it. Like I was talking to Sam earlier on. He said
Mm.
best practices in procurement remain. If we have not
Mm.
implemented them, and if we have been exposed during the pandemic, is because we did not really work towards them, did not follow the best practices. All
Mm.
those
Mm.
things what we have been taught, there are many answers if we really apply those concepts in the real life towards the benefit of the organization. So, and
Mm.
we can add value, right? If you see the full procurement cycle, right from the
Mm.
start of the specifications, supplier
Mm.
selection, supplier qualifications, tendering process, evaluation process, negotiations, and then it is awarding the contracts, then post contract supplier relationship management, performance management of the suppliers, performance
Mm.
management in house, how we are doing KPIs, SLAs, claims management, terms and conditions, uh, handing over, and of course it goes to total cost of ownership, including
Mm.
how we are maintaining it, how we are disposing the particular thing out ultimately. So procurement has role really from the time when we are putting pen to paper and writing our requirements until the
Mm.
time the item is getting disposed. So a lot of things procurement can do for the organization. And
Absolutely right.
yeah, Sarah, coming to how is the current situation changing your thinking or approach towards procurement and supply chain management?
Well, actually, the current challenges that we're facing, all of us globally now, as a one humanity on the COVID-19 situation, has actually enforced and enhanced, not changed, it actually enforced and enhanced my view of the importance and the strategic impact of supply chain and procurement. If me, as one of the practitioners or one of the advocates of the professionals of procurement in the past, I was trying my best to always, with all of us, ourselves, and CIPS and all the networks of supply and procurement professionals globally, we were always trying to, elevate and raise the flag and raise the standards of the profession and make others in other professions and industries understand what this procurement and supply chain is about and what is impact. I think now COVID-19 situation to some extent actually highlighted that more for us, So it's done a lot for procurement and supply chain because it highlighted the importance robust procurement supply chain operations in practice, having solid teams, people with high skill sets, because now with the situation, it's a lot of organizations are really dependent on the quality of the people that they have in their functions, because you need people who are really, collaborative. They can adapt it to the change, that they can collaborate and communicate in a very strong way with their either colleagues or suppliers and counterparts and so on. A lot of it comes around the skill sets. A lot of it comes around having robust procurement processes in place, systems and technologies as well. So it highlighted a lot of the impact and importance of supply chain and procurement. So it did not change my perception, the situation, but it's actually enforced and enhanced. And it brought us out to the light more. To some extent, sometimes it's not a very positive light as well, because some organizations have discovered that they have not been really investing in their procurement and supply chain functions. And in this situation, then the gaps started to come up. Some organizations who have been really in the past aware about what does this function do, strategic impact, top management support, investing in the quality and the skill set of their teams, and also the supporting technologies, investing in their supplier relationship, developing proper supplier relationship management plans. They've now reaped the benefits because the impact of the COVID situation would have hit them a little bit less in comparison to those who did not plan it. So actually it enhanced and improved and enforced for me what procurement and supply chain do. It was more of a proof that what we have been touting all the past years is actually true.
Very insightful and meaningful what you said. I 100% agree with that, because now procurement is this is the time for procurement to shine, to show the leadership. If we have learned something, if there has been qualifications, learning and development, then this is the time pressure testing for the professionals. How do you apply the concepts and techniques in the real life? How you take the decisions? You have to be fast acting. You have to maybe plan and act week by week as the things begin to unfold. So these are the trying circumstances, and it requires a different type of approach, different type of thinking. And Sara, since you are in digital procurement and e-commerce and e-business, so we just want to know, what role did digital procurement play in these times of COVID-19?
I've had several conversations definitely in the past 8 to 10 weeks now, since the start of the pandemic and the lockdowns in different geographies and the work from home situation started as well, and dispersing teams in different locations. I've had several conversations with clients in the region specifically, and I could see and I got the testimonial from many of them that those who have had sound digital tools in place from beginning, the impact of the teams working remotely was definitely far less in their communication with their suppliers,
Right.
in transacting their processes, in continuing with their plans, in continuing with their operation with a minimum impact. You could see examples of organizations that has, for example, let's say, digital contract management solutions. So having teams, large, diverse teams in different locations, there was no struggle in accessing their contracts, in accessing their agreements, in continuing their day-to-day work, even signing some contracts. I had some contacts who were saying that in the midst of the very strictest lockdowns, they could sign the contract digitally, while others had to actually commute to offices, and offices were closed just for that physical signature. Right. Exactly. Or some of them wouldn't have access to the copies of the contract because they don't keep. Similar to the tendering process. Tendering process, there was a lot of struggle. Organizations across the region, specifically those who have strict procurement policies and procedures in place, and that is common for everyone, and specifically government related, where they have the technical submissions separated from commercial submissions, and then commercial submissions are open only after technical is being done.
Not
so
uncommon.
How do you receive that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, how do you receive that if you don't have a secure, robust online sourcing platform that can mimic the physical process to make it virtual? So digital procurement actually came into play, and a lot of requirements now start to come after the COVID-19, when organizations started to recognize that they have a gap in digital, in the digital tools, and when COVID came, the remote work and the collaboration between teams and suppliers started to suffer because of that. So it was more of an enhancement to what digital procurement can do, and it is also for us digital procurement providers to up our game as well. It's not just grabbing the chance that there is a need. It's actually now we need to also improve and and that should reflect on our R&D. What are the challenges that procurement has suffered and has during COVID, that we should translate it into our development roadmap? What are the tools are already advanced now, but there is always room for improvement. There is always room for new technologies and innovation. And and I think it's more of digital procurement providers have to think and invest and think strategically about how COVID-19 impact was and what can they do best, and for organizations to rethink their digital plans. But definitely it had an impact.
Wonderful. I think you also replied the next question I had in mind, that what will be the impact of digitization and evolving technologies on procurement, and will online and digitization play a bigger role from now on? And from the answer, of course, I could understand this is here to stay. Many organizations will be working remotely. Like today, this morning, I heard the news, like Twitter will be working remotely forever. So they have already announced they'll be working remotely forever. And if you remember, I know we attended many conferences together and we participated, we presented. We were trying to highlight the role of digitization, transforming procurement digitally, getting digital procurement, transformation of procurement to through digitization, and new era of procurement. We were talking about it from 5 years and more, and we never knew that it could be so relevant. As you rightly said, organizations which are fully digitized or which have e-procurement, they had no or less problems in working remotely, and others who had done it partly, they could still do something online. Other time they have to go to office. But then the third type of organizations which were not digital ready really had to bear the brunt of these unfortunate circumstances which we were going through. Now, are you changing the way that you work with your suppliers or customers due to coronavirus?
Uh, to be honest, yes, it's not changing. It's more of trying to adapt and do the best of what we have. To me, Lalit, as well, I feel that if we go back to the Twitter story, for example, I feel that definitely with the new age, with the current very quick changing dynamics of our world, there will be an impact on how we work, how we collaborate, how we communicate. But we can never forego 100% the human interaction, the physical interaction, the relationships. I've developed relationships with yourself and everyone through the years because we used to meet face to face. We knew each other. We've met in other circumstances. Had dialogues and so on. So that human interaction will never cease. And it is our makeup. It is our genetics. It's our nature. So when I see the impact that it had for me specifically, I don't deal with suppliers, I deal with customers or partners. It had an impact because when I say that human interaction, physical exchange, in our nature of business, we're more into that consultative business development, consultative sales environment. And you work with the customer to understand what is their pain points, what are their challenges, and what can you do to support and help. And those are always held in workshops, meetings. You have a whiteboard, we're discussing together. You tell me what's your problem, we're drawing our processes, and we're talking. And we have that exchange, that physical exchange, when we're sitting in one meeting room or one location, us and the customers, is always important to develop that rapport, to develop that understanding. And to me, that was a very important part of how I deliver my solutions and how I engage with my customers. Now, doing it across online platforms in the last 2 months or 10 weeks has been a little bit challenging, to be honest. And so what I tended to do is to be more clear in communication, try to speak clearly, try to listen to people in the room. You would have a meeting with 5, 6, 7, 8 people sitting in different locations, and you want to engage them, because if they were in the same room, you would look them in the eye, ask them questions, throw them questions, throw your question. But when people are sitting remotely and you want to have a fruitful session with an outcome and understanding, it is very challenging for you, someone who's leading that session, to ensure that you're capturing, the right audience, you're talking to the right people, and they're engaging. So it was challenging. I had to really enforce on my communication skills, on listening, on first of all, also leading my team through these calls, so giving them roles, making sure that their points have been understood, relay them again. Try to ask the right questions, try to bring out the people sitting at the back of the call to engage them. It's doable, but it's challenging. And that's what I feel, And that's what also highlights the fact that we will never have a complete remote work mode for everything. It might be hybrid. It might be that remote work for some time can be accepted, or partially can be accepted, but not for 100%, because in the end, we are humans and we are in this planet for a specific purpose, and we interact, and that is how I felt it actually in the last 2.5 months.
Yeah, there are merits in face-to-face meeting. You see the body language, and like they teach us, they say 90% of communication is through body language. But then if the complete thing goes missing, you don't get that warmth that is there. Remote might be more practical, but you miss on many aspects. If you are in a team, you're talking to so many people, you don't know who is leading, who is in which position, how to talk to them, how to listen to them properly, right? How to communicate with them, which is effective. So of course, those things will remain. And I'm in agreement with you when you say it will be hybrid. Yes. Now remote, since we are used to this, many things will change, and people will really like to work remotely, but then
Mm,
hybrid like methodology would be much
mm,
better, where you got chance to meet face to face. So
mm,
best of both the worlds. And
mm, mm,
Sarah, if we are considering, we are saying beyond COVID-19, what are the
mm.
key trends companies will need to consider? How do you think we will need to kickstart procurement and supply chain once things become to recover?
Well, I think with definitely with major um, circumstances or major changes that has happened that we haven't seen before in our lifetimes, uh, definitely going back, we need to really assess and stock take
Mhm.
what were our successes, what were our challenges, what were our gaps that has been faced through that time. So I don't think any organization would just go back to normal operation starting from the point that they stopped at. Each organization has to kickstart their operations, to kickstart their procurement functions. They
Mhm.
have to first of all assess and analyze
Mhm.
how did we perform during the pandemic, what were our key success factors, what were
Yeah.
our key challenges, where the gaps, how did the teams operate, what were our losses, what were our gains, and from that
Mhm.
analysis, and each organization is different, you know, my organization is different than yours and different than the next one, so
Yes.
it will not be a one size fit all analysis or study. Each
Mhm.
organization has its specific dynamics, culture, and capabilities. So
Yeah.
each one has to, with the procurement leaders and supply chain leaders, they have to really now study by this time have to start to study and analyze where they done best and
Mhm.
what were the gaps. So when they kickstart with a clear strategy and plan to enhance and improve where they have been successful
Mhm.
and to work on closing the gaps of where they have not been successful. Be it skill sets, be it technology, be it
Mhm.
procurement processes, be it supplier relations, be it having backup suppliers, and all of that. You know, each one would face a different challenge. So to kickstart, no organization should just try to go back to normal and maybe just divide the work into hybrid, remote, and on-site. They have to really assess and analyze how did they perform in the pandemic. It wasn't a lesson that we chose to go into, but it was a lesson that came to us. So we need to learn from it and we need to take benefit from the challenge and analyze and assess to grow better and to go better in the future.
Very well said. Very well said, Sarah. And finally, what will be the your message to the young procurement professionals?
They're a dear group to my heart.
Yeah.
Young procurement professionals.
Mhm.
First of all, I'm really happy that nowadays there are actually university bachelor procurement programs globally.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's a good thing. Yeah. So we
Mhm.
have people who are choosing to be into the profession. I've recently interacted with a very young lady. She's in her second year. But she chose to study supply chain management,
Mhm.
and I was really intrigued and interested, and so on. So my advice to her and to everyone in this generation, the young procurement professionals,
Uh-huh.
is that they are facing more challenges than us. You know, when we started 2-3 decades ago,
Yeah.
change, transformation took time. So we
Yes.
took time to adapt with each stage of change.
Yeah.
So development of a function, it took time, we grew with it. Development of category management practices, it took time,
Mhm.
and we developed supplier. Everything that came into procurement and supply chain in the last 20, 30 years, it took time. Each change took
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And when the time it took, it gave us a chance to develop
Yes.
ourselves, to
Yes.
learn, to fall and stand up and go. But the young generation, they don't have that luxury anymore. The change the change pace or the pace of change is very fast. Technology is progressing by the speed of light, and everything, new practices, everything is moving very fast ahead.
Yes.
If I'm a professional at this time, I would really need to be quick on my feet, always develop myself, always move ahead, challenge myself, build up my skills, be very agile, be a skill set that is demanded across multiple industries, challenge the technology, prove myself. They need to work harder. This is what I can see in comparison to us. Because the challenges that they are facing is that it's a rapidly developing world. It's a rapidly developing digital world. And it's an interesting career. It's a very fulfilling career, but it's not as easy anymore. It's very challenging, and they have to prove to be up there and grow forward with it.
Wonderful. Remarkable. That is a very good message, because we are seeing more and more rise of procurement professionals who are taking profession of procurement as a choice. Procurement is a profession of choice, and they are going into qualifications. We are seeing increased number of membership in CIPS and people who are taking CIPS examinations. And there is a lot of awareness for building the skills and to learn more about procurement and supply chain. Now it is a time to wrap up, and thanks for joining me. And the key learning from this podcast were like procurement has a big role to play, and it may be a time for procurement to shine, to give the solutions, to be decisive, to act fast, to take all the stakeholders within the company on board, as well as have good supply relationship management, and to see the gaps which we had if we did not perform well in various areas, how to strengthen those areas, what was the lesson learned, how can we improve our processes, how we can improve the skills and for learning and development of our procurement staff, how can we learn from technology, how to adapt it fast, how to see the evolving technologies. Like Sara, you told, during our time, we had a lot of time to understand the technology, to understand new concepts and introduce them. But now it is at a faster pace. The evolving technologies are coming in our lives, and we have a little time to adopt them quickly and to bring the business benefits to our organizations. Sara, once again, I want to thank you much. And before you go, I want to know how our audience can connect with you after the
Thank you very much.
podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lalit. And again, I'm really honored to be joining you this morning in this very interesting podcast and very interesting conversation. I cherish it. I have my LinkedIn profile. We can share it at the end of the call, and as well my email. I will post it with my LinkedIn profile. My email at Evalua, sara.omar@evalua.com.
Yeah.
And I'm very approachable on LinkedIn, and I have a very good network over there. So I hope if anyone has any advice or question or any piece of information they'd like to share with me, please reach out to me through the LinkedIn or through the email that we will be sharing shortly.
It is already shared on the screen, and the course notes we can write these show notes. We can write all these details there, and it is displayed on the screen, your LinkedIn profile as well as your email. And thank you once again, Sara, for joining us. It was very